Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you are ready for another one of our programs this week. My name's Nargis, and I will be presenting the news to you. And the first piece of news that I have is about the continuation of the nationwide teachers' protests. On the morning of Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, teachers and educators in 68 cities in 28 provinces of the country staged a nationwide demonstration. Teachers held the demonstrations to protest against difficult living conditions due to low wages, skyrocketing prices, and the regime's lack of attention to their rightful demands. They expressed solidarity with the people and the farmers of Isfahan and condemned the regime's repressive actions and chanted slogans such as "The imprisoned teacher must be released" and "A nation has never seen this much injustice. Only one less embezzlement and our problems will be solved." We salute the heroic people of Isfahan. They expressed their disgust with the actions of this regime. Various foreign media outlets reported that the teachers' protests reflected the cry of the Iranian people who are fed up with the oppression of the mullahs. Following the call for a rally in the dry riverbed of the Zayandehrud River, the Isfahan prosecutor's office warned that any gathering would be dealt with. The mullahs showed their fear by establishing martial law in Isfahan. In recent weeks, due to the demands of the farmers, rallies and gatherings were still held. The rallies of tens of thousands of farmers and citizens to protest the inefficient management of water resources in the Isfahan province, which has disrupted agricultural activities in the region, including the drying of Zayandehrud River and the Gavkhouni wetlands, have been met with violent suppression by the security forces and special units. The people of Isfahan intended to participate in the congregational prayers on the riverbed of the Zayandehrud River, symbolically with a blindfold in support of the wounded. At least 120 people were detained during the crackdown, and about 40 lost their eyesight as a result of pellet guns fired by officers. In response to these clashes, the mothers of the victims of the November 2019 uprising launched a Wounded Eye campaign, which has received widespread support on social media. The Isfahan prosecutor's office brazenly called on citizens to spy and asked them to inform the intelligence and security authorities if they have any information about the perpetrators and external agents. An idea that was ridiculed by the people. Given the explosive situation of the Iranian society, any protest quickly becomes political, and protesting citizens start to chant slogans against the whole system and its leader, Ali Khamenei. In an interview with Event 24, the head of the Parliamentary Judicial Commission revealed the nature of the regime and said, if someone acts destructively during the protests, they can be shot at. Alam ul-Huda, the Imam of Mashhad, said that when the rainfall is low, it is not right to gather against God, thus accusing the people of opposing God and threatening them. Various news agencies reported on the talks with Iran that are happening in Vienna and seemed to have failed. It seems that the only way to stop Iran from building an atomic bomb is to put maximum pressure on the regime. Reuters reported on the 3rd of December, senior diplomats from France, Britain and Germany who have been discussing reviving the Iran nuclear deal, have expressed disappointment and concern over Tehran's proposal to change the text agreed upon in previous rounds. The Wall Street Journal reporter said, senior European diplomats have concluded that reviving the nuclear deal may no longer be possible. Various European diplomats have said some of Iran's proposals are against the JCPOA and some are beyond the JCPOA. We now have an expert from an interview that Fox News did with Miss Mariam Rajabi and some activists in Iran. I now draw your attention to this video.
Well, Sandra and John, Iran is escalating its nuclear program as diplomats met in Vienna to try and stop just that. The Islamic Republic also demands that the U.S. end all sanctions before it even does anything. So we turn to the streets of Iran to talk to activists who are risking their lives to oppose the regime and ask them what would they say to President Biden. Gunfire and tear gas wounding hundreds of protesters in Iran last weekend. For months, Iranians have taken to the streets, calling for the theocratic regime to be overthrown. And some talk to Fox News. We are not identifying the activists we spoke to, because if they are caught by the government, they could be executed.
My message to President Biden, it is that the regime of Iran does not represent the people of Iran. I want President Biden to be by the side of the people of Iran, the people who have been participating in different uprisings.
The protests exploded this past summer in Tehran. Thousands voicing their opposition to regime policies, from supporting terrorism to the troubled economy.
While the regime is spending the wealth of the Iranian people on nuclear weapons and export of terrorism to the Middle East, what kind of life can people have where 80% of the population live under the poverty line?
The protesters are warning the Biden administration about the consequences of rejoining the Iranian nuclear deal, known as the JCPOA. They say the deal will only embolden Tehran.
Lifting sanctions or giving cash to the regime will only prolong its life, the life of the barbaric dictatorship.
I want President Biden to know that the experience of the past 42 years has showed that the politics of appeasement does not work anymore. For instance, we saw that the nuclear deal of 2015 did not limit Iran's actions towards achieving a nuclear weapon.
Some of the protesters belong to the largest Iranian opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Its leader, Mariam Rajavi, says the pressure on the regime is only growing.
The regime fears that even a small incident could trigger a major uprising.
The Biden administration says it will return to the nuclear deal and lift billions in sanctions if Iran lives up to the agreement. Well, supporters say that the deal will prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The activists we talked to say it will eventually do just the opposite and give Iran a green light for a bomb when the deal lapses in 4 years. Sandra and John?
Incredibly important.
Criticizing the use of the term child spouse about 13-year-old girls, Hassan Nourouzi, the Iranian regime's deputy chairman of the Judiciary and Legal Commission of the Iranian Parliament, said that spousal children are referred to about child marriages of 9 or 10-year-olds, but 13-year-old girls are not child spouses. Khamenei, who seeks to increase the population, promotes child marriage, including by providing loans and advertising on state television. Coinciding with the trial of Hamid Nouri, which is happening in Sweden, a letter has been written to the UN General Secretary from more than 100 athletes who have called for the prosecution of the current president of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi, as one of the main commanders and perpetrators of the 1988 crime, citing genocide and crimes against humanity in the executions of the summer of 1988. The signatories of the letter, which include world and Olympic champions, wrote that a number of athletes at the time were among the victims of the 1988 massacre. And that's it for the news this week. I hope you continue to have a good rest of your weekend and enjoy the programme. Thank you.